Twins of Reddit, what's your embarrassing story involving your twins partner? Was going down an escalator at a casino. Look across and see my brother. Get the excites and yell, hey bro. Start waving for his attention. Was waving to myself in a mirror. Mr. Clark, I grew up in a small town where if you were walking down the road and your neighbors were outside, you smiled and waved. For years, I would take walks as a kid, smiled and waved all the time to a dear old gentleman. Mr. Clark, I was sad when I learned he passed away. He was well liked in the community. A couple of weeks after he passed, I went for a walk. As I approached his house, I saw a familiar face. It was Mr. Clark. Mr. Clark was dead. A chill went through me. I felt frozen but yet able to walk. I felt sheer terror. In that second, it was confirmed. Ghosts are real. But no one would believe me, so I kept it to myself. For a couple of weeks, I saw Mr. Clark in his yard a couple of times and I hurried on by his house as fast as I could. That feeling of sheer terror always at the surface. Mr. Ghost Clark was a little off. He didn't smile. He didn't wave. I couldn't take it anymore, so I mentioned Mr. Clark to my bestie's mom, who lived 3 houses down from Mr. Clark. Mr. Clark was a twin. The happy twin passed and the curmudgeon Clark was still alive and kicking. I will never forget the feeling of nearly losing my bowels the first time I saw Ghost Clark after he passed. I will also never forget the laughter my friend's mom couldn't hold back when I told her my ghost story. I fancied a twin in high school and couldn't realize why in one class she spoke to me yet in another didn't know what the duck I was on about. It took me 4 months and just bumping into them both on the walk home and I literally went, there's 2 of you. My ex was once scrolling through FB and said, you look really hot in this photo. It wasn't me. This is actually my friend's story. She went to see a play at a university with her identical twin. His sister said that there was a shortcut to the theater by cutting through some class building. My friend didn't think that made sense, but her sister seemed confident about it, so she followed along. Then suddenly her sister opens a classroom door and says, let's go in here. My friend goes inside and freaks out when she sees a bunch of paintings of what looks like herself, completely naked. It turns out her sister had posed nude for an art class and thought that would be a fun surprise. My mom is an identical twin. She and her sister were always dressed alike and hated it, so one year for Halloween my grandpa took my mom costume shopping and my grandma took my aunt. When they got home they were so excited to show each other their costumes, but when they came out of their room they were wearing the same thing. My twin brother died in a car wreck and my family suggested that I should date his girlfriend because grief, I guess. Real duck and awkward. Mom. Dad's friend is a twin. Lives in Chicago. His twin brother lives in Boston. On the same day, both twins fell off a ladder and broke the same leg. My grandpa has a twin brother, and they look nearly identical even now in their late 70s. My mom told me that when I was a toddler we were at a family reunion. Apparently my grandpa was holding me and talking to my parents and then his twin brother walked up to us and my reaction was to say, stunned and wide-eyed, 2 grandpas. I must have been really happy to have not 1, but 2 amazing grandpas to interact with. Edit, added missing us. I'm not a twin, but dated one of 2 twin brothers in high school. The other twin also had a girlfriend at the school. One day, someone in my class pulls me aside to nervously tell me he thinks my boyfriend is cheating on me. He was fairly new at the school and didn't know yet there were twins. It gave us all a good laugh when the story got around and the guy was pretty relieved to hear there was no cheating going on. I'm not the twin, but I was dating a guy on and off for years, long distance, and eventually came to find out that the guy I had been on and off dating was ducking his twin brother and his twin brother's wife. I couldn't believe it at first, but then a whole lot of things started to make sense. The more I thought about it, I'd been friends with him a solid 15 years. And in that whole time he never really dated anyone but me. But he spent so much time with his twin brother and even more with his twin brother's wife. We're no longer dating. There was a ducked up story about the twins in my country. 2 baby girls were swapped in hospital, and 1 twin came back home with other family. Their daughter stayed with her twin sister. Girls were completely different, but the family thought they are just not identical twins. They found out the truth when all 3 girls were in high schools. The real twins were constantly called differently and strangers would approach them and say hi. They lived in a relatively small town. So finally some common friends organized their meeting. Although they look identical, they are completely different people. Egg. One of them likes metal music and wears black clothes. The story didn't end up well. Although they sued the hospital, both families are devastated by the whole story. I went to a funeral of a friend's father. I had no idea that the deceased had an identical twin. It felt really strange to see the guy in the coffin sat at the front row of the church. Not a twin, but I had a pair of teachers at my middle school who were identical twins. They tended to dress similarly and I spent a lot of time confused as to how they could move around the school so quickly until someone told me there were 2 of them, and that they were twins. This was right before one of them got pregnant though, so I would have figured it out eventually. My grandma and her sister were twins. Her sister was going to be a nun so couldn't be involved in any affairs. Some guy asked the sister out, who sent my grandma in her place. Tasked with ending the date poorly. I'd like to say there's a funny ending that the guy is my granddad, but he's not. He's just some random dude. My identical twin brother, my wife, and myself all went to school together and got jobs at the same place after passing boards. Since there are some rules regarding family working together, I was not hired to the same unit as my wife, but my twin was. It was a lot of fun. Taking lunches together, etc. But there was one social worker who just couldn't grasp that my brother and wife were not the married ones. She'd compliment me on how cute they were together, comment on social media how great a couple they were, even talk about how much my kids take after their dad, referring to him. It's all benign and we laugh about it, but she really laid it on thick. While we wait for serious replies, how many sets of twins did you guys have at your school? In elementary school, there were 3 sets of twins and 1 set of triplets in my grade. Pretty insane. I believe my class size was around 100 or so. I tried to date this girl from class and we were going out on dates and everything, but out of nowhere she stopped talking to me because her friends saw me with another girl, my twin sister, at the movies and thought I was playing her, but they didn't know I have a twin sister. My husband has an identical twin. When my husband and I got engagement photos done, Facebook automatically tagged my husband's brother in a bunch of our photos, and I posted them without realizing. Saw my identical male twin naked in high school. His wiener is much larger than mine. No homo, but we even compared them once and his was definitely larger. Any other twins have this problem? My dad and uncle are twins. 2/3 times a year they'll show up to dinner or they'll be at each other's houses wearing the exact same outfit, only different brands. At first it was funny, but now we know it just happens. People mix them up all the time. Multiple times a month they're telling people they're not the other. Haha. Acquaintances and work associates have thought they're having an affair. My dad was confronted once and had to explain to the guy, who was a couple drinks in apparently, that he's not his brother. An actual story from when they were kids. They're almost 3 years and share a room with 2 wooden frame twin beds. That Christmas they got a plastic tool chest toy set thing. My grandma says it wasn't more than 3 weeks after Christmas when she goes into their room and the beds are completely taken apart. The head and footboard bolts were removed, the slats were removed and separated. They had no idea how it happened. My grandpa called up the company handyman who put it back together. Couple days later, same exact thing, only my grandparents are pissed now. They got rid of the wood bed frames and got 2 metal cots with the springs, which lasted about a week. My grandma walks into their room and found one of the beds completely taken apart, each spring removed. The twins, though they were working together on the second cot, one of them was grabbing the fabric and pulling it to ease the tension and the other was using the back of the plastic hammer to pry out the spring. They ended up losing tool chest privileges. I was with my twin brother at the supermarket this one time, and judging from this story I'm guessing that obviously we look the same from the back, but not exactly the front because I'm a female. My brother's girlfriend was shopping at the same store as us that day and comes up behind me and smacks my bottom saying "Hey love." Jokingly I turn around and say it back. The look on her face made me regret what I did. Nice try, porn producers writers. I'm not a twin, but I knew some in HS. There were these two identical girls who were your kind of typical slutty experimental girls, and they revealed to me they would practice making out on each other. Additionally, they shared a boyfriend at some point without telling him they were two separate people, but when he found out, he was real upset because if they were lying about that, then what else was going on behind his back? I've told this story before, but it's even more fitting here. My identical twin sister was dating the president of a fraternity on campus, and during one of the frat's date night events she went with her BF and I was set up as a date for one of his brothers. Towards the end of the night I got separated from my date, and my sister's extremely drunk boyfriend put his arm around me while sis was in the bathroom. BF leaned in to kiss me. Venue was super dark, so I think it was an honest mistake, so I backed up to set the record straight. He asked if I was down for a threesome with my own twin sister. I still feel bad for ditching my date, but shudders I had to get out of there ASAP. My twin brother is gay, so early in high school before people knew he had a twin I was groped by a gay man. My twin brother went out to pick up some wine and his girlfriend, at the time, came over and thought I was him. She was probably really horny, but without hesitating she began to kiss me and it took me by surprise, to the point where I was frozen in shock. I was about to get her off me, but that was when he walked in. My little brother and sister are twins and both of them have multiple flat spots on their heads, not noticeable through their hair. This is because before they were born they would headbutt each other inside of my mother. The doctor said a lot of the kicking she felt were actually headbutts. Not a twin. Dated a twin on and off for a while. In middle school, I would get a call from my boyfriend. We chat for a bit and then he'd have to go so his brother could have his phone time. These were the days before cell phones. Then we'd hang up and I'd get another phone call a minute later from my boyfriend. Turns out the first call was from his twin brother. Boyfriend would get pissed. He tried that a few more times. Then I learned to tell their voices apart. Edit. Thanks for my first silver. Only tangentially related to topic, but I feel like sharing. On my last day as manager of a restaurant, a new girl was hired. I continued to drink there, and she and I got to know each other a little. Mostly just drink and smoke. Gave her a ride here and there, texted and such. Went on for a year. Then I started seeing her fairly frequently at a new place. She'd always hug me and seemed genuinely happy to see me. It was nice. I could feel real affection in her hugs. One day I saw her, and everything seemed like usual, but I didn't feel anything when we hugged. I was confused, but I figured maybe it was my imagination since I hadn't done anything wrong. TBH. It really bothered me. I thought about it all week. Then the next week I saw her with her identical twin. I was surprised and very relieved. Turns out it happens all the time and her sister plays along as if she knows me because it's faster than explaining. TLDR. I can't visually tell the difference between identical twins, but I can tell the difference between sincere and insincere hugs. Also, now that I know, even though they appear identical, it's easy to tell the difference. Not a twin, but I was dating one. They shared a bedroom. We were at an age that we'd still live at home. I walked in on my twin, fresh out of the shower. She was butt naked and stood with her back to me, so I walked up and grabbed her from behind, pulling her closer to me when she asked, "Alwyn?" Wrong twin. Double quote. Double quote. Double quote. Our secret? Yeah. Sorry about that. Bye. My cousin married a twin. Accidentally groped the wrong tushy at their wedding reception in front of both families. No alcohol involved, but there were some tempers and some tears. When I was a baby, my dad was supposed to take my brother to a doctor's office because he was sick and he took me instead. My dad realized that it was me and got my brother to the doctor's. Turns out he just had a cough. Basically all of these stories are about identical twins. I'm a guy who has a twin sister and we don't look anything alike. I'm a dead ringer for the guys in my mom's family and both my twin and little sister favor my dad's family. On top of the obvious low effort lol you ducker twin bullet, it really has only been a positive for me. I'm pretty awkward and having someone to always talk to and someone around to give me an excuse to start talking to girls etc was always a big plus. We made our own language when we were little and have so many memories. I dated an identical twin back in high school. Her sister had recently broken up with her boyfriend. The ex-boyfriend and his mom were walking through the park and saw my girlfriend and I kissing. Without the slightest display of emotion, she turns to her son and says, so that's why she left you. One of my good friends in college, we'll call her Ellie, has a twin sister. We'll call her sister. Sister had a boyfriend while Ellie was blissfully single. We were all over at sister's place making dinner together and having some beers. Ellie went to grab something out of the fridge, so her back was to the room. Sister's boyfriend walked by, gave her a casual but firm butt grab and went on his way to the counter to IDK, chop something. Ellie gasped and turned around. The room stopped. We all just stared and waited for boyfriend to notice he'd grabbed the wrong twin. You could see the exact moment he realized sister, his girlfriend, was not, in fact, at the refrigerator. She was on the other side of the room. He slowly looked back down at the cutting board. He couldn't even process the shame. He apologized profusely. Ellie was horrified for a second, but after she realized it was an honest mistake, she thought it was funny. He literally could not make eye contact with her for a week. Spelling. I feel like this should say identical twins. There's not much fraternal twin partner shenanigans. Fraternal twins are twins too.